thanks so much, and I hope that grabbed your attention because it's always a bit unkind to the speaker who's the last speaker of the evening. And to make matters worse, I speak after one tennis great and one all-around great, Javed Akhtar Saab. So I'm both disappointed that, that I have to, try and do a finish-up act after him, and also excited to speak to you about issues that really are close to my heart. People want journalists to speak about journalism, to speak about the interviews they did and the stories they did. Instead, I want to talk about the passion that makes most journalists tick. The truth is that today, it's not the same as it was, let's be honest, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I used to go around and give lectures about being a journalist, and I'd get, people asking me for autographs, and, and people asking me, how can I send my kid to journalism school? How do they get into a television channel? And everyone had stars in their eyes. Today, there are no stars in everyone's eyes. Words like a prostitute are used. Words that show that the media is no longer at a high pedestal it once were are used. And I just want to give you, in these next few minutes, a sense of the kind of passion that drives us. I'll tell you why I showed you that bomb blast in a second. Of course, it's not a real video. It's from the Hurt Locker, as many of you might know. Did you know, for example, that the average bomb, and the average bomb's just about this big, right? You either strap it on like a suicide bomber, or you place it under somebody's chair. Everybody's suddenly looking to see if they've got any there. It's about this big. When it detonates at the speed of 8.5 kilometers per second. To put that in perspective, that's 22 times faster than a 9mm bullet coming out of an automatic handgun, right? If you talk about the air pressure around, and you can see some of that around a bomb that goes off, it's about 150 times what your normal air pressure of about, I think, 15 pounds per second is. If you look at the heat, it goes way over boiling point. It goes way over the hundreds even. Sometimes it goes way over 1,000 degrees as well. Nuclear bomb, of course, is much more than that. So we're talking about a very, very high intensity. And that's when the bomb detonates. Even so, scientists will tell you that there is 1 millisecond, one little millisecond, in which the bomb detonates, but all the oxygen in the air is sucked up. That's the kind of silence you have in that 1 millisecond before the bomb detonates. And then every part of the bomb, whatever you've packed inside the bomb, sometimes it's nails, sometimes it's ball bearings, they go out like a projectile. Now think about everything I have just told you for an average bomb, a small bomb, and extrapolate that to a car bomb. A car bomb packed with a gas cylinder, which is packed with explosives, and there are explosives under all the seats. That, ladies and gentlemen, was really my moment of truth. And that's what I want to speak about this afternoon. The fact is, we all go through life with many experiences, but there are a few moments in each of our lives that are crystal clear. It was August 10th, 2000, 17 years ago, when I was a reporter in Kashmir. And as reporters do, we tend to be in places when there is a bad situation going on. There's a conflict in the area. And we happened to be in a certain area. Actually, I was shopping that morning because I was headed home after that, when we heard something go off. Now, the average reaction of most people, if I was to set something off in the middle of this theater, is to run. The average reaction of the average journalist, and certainly every journalist I know, is to run in the opposite direction, as in towards the sound. When we got there, we realized there was a little grenade, and we sort of took it easy, not realizing that that grenade was a ruse. The idea of that grenade was to bring in as many security forces, bomb disposal squad, and policemen into that area before detonating the car bomb. The car bomb exploded. It exploded right in front of us. as I looked around, and maybe now I'm talking in nanoseconds. I'm no longer speaking in the average second that human beings think of in these things. And that's one of the reasons why that bomb blast goes out in slow motion, because that's how you feel when you're inside it. When you're feeling the heat or taking the pressure or being hit by a projectile, as the photographer next to me was. He died. More than a dozen other people died over there. But the truth was that for that 1 millisecond before everything happened, I had a moment of clarity. I can't explain it, it was just there. It was this moment of clarity, which is why years later, now when I hear people say my entire life flashed before my eyes, I don't laugh about it. It's not a cliche, it is the truth. Because it is in that one moment of clarity that you realize what it is you care about, what matters to you, or who matters to you. Is it your parents? Is it a husband, a wife, a girlfriend, a boyfriend? Is it your children? Is it a home in the hills that you've always loved? Is it an idea? Is it an unfinished work, something you've written which you've only half written? What is important to you? And that's that moment that you have to try and use. So we all have these moments. You look in history, there are lots of these moments. I'll take all the most famous ones, of course. Mahatma Gandhi. His moment was probably nothing to do with the Indian freedom struggle. It had to do with being thrown off a train because he was traveling in a first-class compartment. As he sat on that platform, he tried to explain that he had a ticket for the first class, but the reason he was thrown off was because of the color of his skin. Or in the US, Martin Luther King. In 1956, he was already a civil rights activist, but there are lots of civil rights activists. I mean, there were lots even at that time. What was his moment of truth? Was being pulled over, not for protesting, not for burning a flag or burning his registration card, but for overspeeding. He was pulled over because he was 5 kilometers over the speed limit. But the way that he was treated, once again, because of the color of his skin, is what made Martin Luther King Jr. the man that we saw, the man that we don't even realize today was less than 40 years old when he was killed. So there are all these stories from before. Malala Yousafzai, for example. We all know what her moment of truth was, right? That moment of clarity should have been when she was shot by a Taliban gunman for attempting to go to school and give her exams. But that's not the most important thing she's done. So it's not just important what your moment of truth is, because each of us will have a moment of truth when we know what matters to us. It is what you do with that moment of truth that really counts. So Malala Yousafzai will now be remembered. I don't know how many of you saw that she is now, 5 years later, entered Oxford, and is known for her one book, one pen, one teacher, one child campaign. I had in my life 2 such journalists who sort of told me, it's not important what you do, it's not important what your moment of truth is, it's what you do with that moment of truth that counts. The first was a camera woman who, by coincidence, I had traveled to Kashmir with, who said to me, what are you scared of? In those days, I was, Javed Saab could just get on a stage and speak. I just did not have the courage to even get in front of a camera. I'd do 30 takes, 35 takes, and I'd still not be able to say my own name, in one go. And she said to me, what are you afraid of? Now, it's very intimidating when somebody like her was saying it to me, because about 10 years before she had come with me to Kashmir to do some very grueling camera work, Margaret Moth was in Sarajevo, and she just had, peeked around a corner, and she was filming something when a mortar shell hit her from here. It took her entire jaw off. Margaret had to go through all kinds of, restructuring of her jaw, and she was finally able to come back and work as a camera person. And she said to me, if I can come back, you can do anything you want to do, basically. But you have to find that moment of truth. the fact is that all of us, we seem to think that motivation is going to come from something that is external. But the truth is that motivation ends up being something that has happened to you. There's no other way around it. For some people, it's an accident. For some people, it's something terrible like this. For some, it's a really great occasion. You get married to someone you love. You have a child. There are others who have been just motivated by, a pet, or motivated by a desire to go into the mountains. There was one of my friends who, in fact, addressed a TED Talk just last year, who was motivated by a book he read. At the end of the evening, this was a techie, MBA, traveling around the world, living in the best of style, who finished a book one evening and said, I want to be a writer who can evoke these kind of images. And overnight, he turned from this techie MBA into an author, and he's already 3 books in. So that became his moment of truth. And each of us has to find it and find what it is that we want to do with that moment. To be honest, I wasn't very good about my moment of truth, at least not immediately. When I got over my injuries and I had to have surgery, I felt that this was a sign that I should basically take it easy. That somehow, if there was a moment of clarity in my mind, that clarity actually meant that I needed to take a back seat in what I was doing. I had 2 young girls, less than 3 years old at the time. I had a husband, and while he never said anything, I'm sure nobody wants to be at the opposite end of a phone being told your wife is injured, she's in hospital. And I felt that this was then my sign to just take a little bit of a back seat. Don't put your hand up for every assignment. When you do go on assignment, look over your shoulder. Be a little more careful. I even changed jobs in the meanwhile in all of this. But if you are lucky, as I was, that moment of truth is going to follow you. And I found that even while I was taking my back seat, I was being pushed into areas as a journalist where I didn't have a chance for my fears. So I was sitting in an office, minding the office while vacations were on, when the phone call came to say there's a military plane going into tsunami hit areas. Do you want to go? And I looked around, and literally there wasn't even a mouse in that office on Christmas Day. And I said, well, I guess there's nobody else to go, so I will. There was another time when I was sitting very safely inside a studio and reading the news when a call came to say they're asking if you can go to Lebanon because Indians are being evacuated from the war over there. Can you go cover it? And again, I got pushed into going back and trying to find what it is I love to do. And other wars followed. There was Syria, there was Libya. There was in my own region. I have a passion for South Asia. An identity I believe is very, very, very important to all Indians. And I feel sorry that the next generation hasn't yet come to terms with the South Asia we once grew up believing would be there. And I got to travel to Pakistan. I traveled to Bangladesh, to Sri Lanka, to Nepal. And slowly I realized that that moment of truth was coming back. As a result, I have to say I'm very lucky to have been recognized, and TED Talk is one of them. I often get to speak at convocations for journalism students. And there was this convocation speech I gave that some of you may have somewhere heard about. It was entitled, I hope you have many job rejections. And when I gave the speech, I remember the students had a kind of nervous laugh when I said, I really hope you get a lot of job rejections. And their parents looked like, oh my God, this woman is absolutely mad, and wondered why I was saying this. And then I explained why I was saying it. Because in this period that I was just describing to you, in this haze, there was a moment where I went to apply for a job which I thought would keep me very safe. It was a documentary channel where I would be able to commission documentaries without working very hard. I really needed this job at that time, or so I thought. So I made a very strong pitch for it. And when I walked in, the interviewer said, sit down. And I felt actually like I'd done very well on my interview. And the interviewer said, you know, you are very convincing. You're probably very qualified for this job. So don't try and tell me you're qualified. Don't try and tell me you're a good talker, you can do the marketing, because I can see that already. You're flexible. You might even like your job. You might enjoy this job. But you are going to hate me because your passion is news, and I'm going to take you away from it if I give you this job. So sorry, I'm not going to give you this job. And that's what I meant by saying, I hope each one of you has that opportunity, has the moment of truth where, or somebody nudges you towards it, to understand what it is that you want to do. I'm not going to wish for you. I mean, as a journalist, you can wish, you know, may you have lots of really good scoops, may you have lots of really good interviews. But as a conflict journalist, I can't wish for you, may you get into a bomb blast, or may you get shot at, and all the rest. But I can wish that there is this moment of truth. So I'm going to play this video for you once again. And this time, I want you to watch it and close your eyes and have a sense of what it is that flashes before your eyes at that moment. Can we just play it again? Imagine you're that person. Close your eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Let's hope you've had your moment of truth. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen.